Happy St. Patty's Day and welcome to Browns Mock Draft Live. Nathan Zegura alongside Sir Andrew Gribble. He's got a little green under there.
Little Bobcats,
he's ready.
too.
A little Bobcats.
Every day of the offseason is important.
The alma mater. It is.
Look, that's how we address it. You know, a well-deserved rest for the boys.
Yes, indeed. So we're here with you today. It is your lucky day. I hope you're all having fun for St. Patty's Day and be safe out there. But what we're going to do is kind of take a look at the teams that are at picks 2 through 11, see kind of what they've done this offseason and how that could affect who is available for the Browns at pick 12. And as always, we want you guys to interact with us, ask us your questions, and we'll get to those as we go through. But Gribbs, let's start with the Browns, the 3 big free agent signings of the Cleveland Browns this offseason.
Yeah, there's just a big focus to a lot of fans' adoration after we hear about the offensive line all offseason. The Browns attacked it heavy, not only signing J.C. Tretter and Kevin Zeitler, but addressing Joel Bitonio, keeping him here for a long time with a 5-year extension. The core of that offensive line, the center of it, the guards in the center where the Browns had all their issues last season, it's addressed. Now you have the left tackle with Joe Thomas and plenty of competition at right tackle with both of us thinking that Sean Coleman is going to come in second year and really take this thing over and have a good mix of young offensive linemen, guys in their prime, and guys like Joe Thomas, who even at his age is still performing at a really high level.
Yeah, still 10-time Pro Bowler. And yes, Joe Thomas told me he thinks Sean Coleman is ready to go at right tackle. But you talked about those guys. J.C. Tretter started the first half of the season for Green Bay last year before getting injured, was the 5th-ranked center by Pro Football Focus at that time and considered to be one of the best pass-protecting centers in the NFL. And then there's Zeitler. Many people say one of the best guards in the league, $12 million he ended up getting. And it's amazing. Now, you're seeing guards making more money than right tackles, and it just shows how important it is. Pocket depth. You're starting to hear a lot about that, pocket depth for these quick-hitting passing games.
Yeah, and I think that this is a reflection, too, of maybe the lack of talent that's coming out of college right now in the offensive line. I think that the style of offense has really affected the development of these offensive linemen. So now it's when teams find guys that can hang and can do it well, they're going to reward them well, because I just think there's a shortage of really good offensive linemen on the market, and you can't now just draft a guy and slide him in there and bank on him being really good. Look at the struggles that Cam Robinson had in St. Louis and now with the Rams. Just not worth the number 2 overall pick. And you're just seeing every year these guys just aren't really coming in and locking it down the way Joe Thomas did in 2006.
Yeah, it seems like if you want a lineman to come in and play for you, you better draft him from the Big Ten. Otherwise, especially coming out of the SEC, it's going to take some time, and hopefully we'll get that with our own guy out there at right tackle in Sean Coleman. We got our first question. Brian Weinclaw says, should we replace Cam Irving? And I think the answer to that right here is, at least at the center position, yes, they brought in J.C. Tretter. I think Cam, it looks like to me, if he's going to play for this team, is going to have to come out, shock the world, and win the right tackle job.
Yeah, I think you reach the time when you're in your 3rd season, you're going to have to really step up and be one of the best 5 offensive linemen. The thing that works in his advantage in terms of being a part of this offensive line, whether it be as a starter or on the bench, is his versatility. I think he's got the ability to play guard, can play the tackle, and in a pinch, he could be your backup center. It just all depends on what is in store for John Greco in the future, how he recovers from that foot injury, and where his place is on this offensive line.
Absolutely. And then the one free agent we hadn't talked about yet, Kenny Britt, the wide receiver from the Rams. He was the Rams' leading receiver each of the last 3 seasons, went over 1,000 yards last year, had a career high in 15 games. A big play guy, 5 catches of more than 30 yards last year. The Browns as a team had only 6, and I know that we all wanted Terrell Pryor here. We all did. But he's not here. Kenny Britt's going to step in. So you don't have a huge hole there. You have another guy who basically put up the same numbers and an eerily similarly bad passing attack out there in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it was a move the Browns had to make if they were thinking that Pryor wasn't going to be back. Britt's a guy that is really had his best season last year with the Rams. You don't know if he's maybe ascending, but you'd be really happy if he can match those numbers that he had with the Rams last year. And I still think it's a position now that maybe rises up your ranks in areas where you can really address it in the draft. I know the Browns drafted 4 wide receivers last year. It wouldn't surprise me if you devote multiple picks to that position again this year. It wouldn't surprise me either if you address it maybe in these later stages of free agency as well with a number of guys out there.
All right. Now, the one position you don't see up here was a safety from the Browns in terms of getting one in free agency. They were in on Tony Jefferson, offered him the most money, along with the Jets. He ended up going to the Baltimore Ravens. Menachem asked us, any chance we pick up a safety in free agency? I would have thought the answer was yes. I would have thought it would have happened already. It hasn't. You're down to McDougal, and McDonald is really the only 2 starting safeties out there still in free agency.
Yeah, you wonder what's going on with them. I guess until those guys sign with the team, it's not over yet. But you wonder if at this stage, if the Browns have already just kind of devoted their resources to the draft, and if you don't sign a safety that maybe has starting chances in free agency, which it looks less and less likely as the days move on, then you start to wonder what's going on with that 12th pick and what the Browns are going to maybe be able to do in a draft that, in terms of top-end talent, has a number of great safeties that, when they're drafted, are going to be expected to start right away.
Certainly they do, and that's something we'll talk about later. Good teaser right there from Sir Andrew. All right, let's take a look now at teams 2 through 11, what they started to do. And I'm just going to warn you right now, we're going to have a very liberal use of the word major here in terms of these major signings, because we know one man's trash might be another man's treasure, but in terms of the impact on what teams might do, you can make the case that it is major that the 49ers signed Brian Hoyer and that the Bears signed Mike Glennon, because those were two teams at 2 and 3 that could be looking for a quarterback. Now, Hoyer's only getting about $5 million a year. I don't know if that takes them out of the market, but they're paying Glennon $15 million a year. I would imagine they're not taking a quarterback at number 3.
Yeah, the most definitive thing with Glennon here is that the GM in the first press conference welcoming Glennon called him the starting quarterback. I mean, he's not being brought in to compete for the job.
Yep.
He is the starter. So I think that all but eliminates them from taking a quarterback at the number 3 position, because I think, one, the Bears need to win now. They're in a position with their regimes that they want to start producing wins. I think they have enough talent to win, especially on defense, where they can maybe get back to that 7-8 win 9 mark. The 49ers are interesting. I think it wouldn't surprise me if they go with a quarterback at number 2, but they've got time on their side. This is a new regime. I think they were just filling a lot of holes because there was a lot of holes on that roster. They got a lot of guys.
They did.
No team has signed more free agents than the 49ers. They got a number of players who you can plug in right away as potential starters, but not a lot of building blocks for the future. So I think they're going to look at the quarterback position, probably not with that number 2 pick. And there's all the rumblings about what the future with Kirk Cousins could potentially be in San Francisco, and if they're just waiting for that to happen in 2018.
And I think that's probably the likely scenario. They're waiting for him. They did bring in Pierre Garçon, who got a nice deal for a receiver in his 30s, and they made Kyle Juszczyk, the former Baltimore Raven, the highest paid fullback in the history of the game by double, over $5 million per year. So I think these two are out of the quarterback position. By the way, we got a question from Periscope. They want to know, who will the Browns take at number 1? Go ahead.
I think it's going to be Myles Garrett.
There will not be an envelope issue. Yes.
It's still, not 100%. Nothing's 100% until draft day. A lot of times, Texas A&M still has a pro day to go through. But it doesn't seem like there's much drama right now in these mock drafts when they're projecting what the Browns are going to do.
It looks like it is going to be Myles Garrett for sure. Kevin, by the way, with the comments, said hit the defense this year, better class for the quarterbacks next year. Now, they say that all the time. I think you need to take your chances each and every year. We'll get into that as we move along. But defense at the top, certainly with Myles Garrett. And when we get to position 12, maybe some defense there as well. As we go through here, picks now, number 4 and 5, the Jags brought in Calais Campbell. They're not a threat, I don't think, to take a quarterback with Blake Bortles, but they're a team that could look at one of the safeties you mentioned. We've seen Jamal Adams linked there quite a bit. Leonard Fournette mocked there quite a bit as well.
Yeah, the one thing I wonder if with the Jaguars, the impact of this signing, they signed Malik Jackson last year to a huge deal. Safe bet they're probably not going to be going in the Jonathan Allen, Solomon Thomas market. Maybe avoid that position because they're looking to fill some holes and really turn that team around. They've been kind of stuck in that 4 or 5 win mode for the last few years. They need to fill immediate holes and get some results right away, because this is a make or break here for Blake Bortles. You just want to see something better than what you've seen out of the Jaguars last few years, so they want to win now.
I think you're right about that. By the way, keep those questions coming to us. We'll get to them as we move along. Tennessee Titans, their big splash signing was a corner. This is a team pretty good on defense, clearly set at quarterback. They are set at tight end with Delaney Walker. They're set at running back with Derrick Henry and DeMarco Murray, but they have question marks galore at wide receiver. In fact, they were one of 4 teams that had their head coach and their general manager at the Clemson Pro Day yesterday, and they weren't there for Deshaun Watson. I think they were there for Mike Williams. This is a team I think that could take a wide receiver very early in this draft.
But I think it's also a team that could potentially trade back out of that number 5
Absolutely.
spot, because that might be a little early for a guy like Corey Davis, especially when he's dealing with an injury, wasn't able to participate in his Pro Day. Maybe you move a few spots back, because I don't think the teams after them are really looking at wide receivers at that point in the draft. They've been known to trade back in the past. Their GM's done a great job of rebuilding that roster. Another guy with Cyprien, that's another area they address with their defensive backfield. They could still use another DB, though. I think that it wouldn't surprise me if they went after a guy like Marshawn Lattimore at that number 5 pick.
All right, as we roll through here, picks number 6 and 7, the New York Jets, the LA Chargers. By the way, what position should we target at 33? When we get to pick 12, we'll kind of talk through those scenarios. That's from Periscope. We appreciate that. So we'll talk through that in just a second. But you look at the Jets, really, they lost Revis. I think they're going defensive back, but this is, again, another team that could go quarterback. And I'd say right now, if you're saying the team in the top 10 most likely to take a quarterback, I think it's got to be the Jets.
Yeah, they just weren't very active in free agency. They were in on a couple of guys. They were in on Donta Hightower, in on Tony Jefferson. Didn't land those guys. I think they're just, of all the teams in this draft, they are in the most rebuilding mode out of any of them,
Yep.
maybe with an eye to that 2018 draft when it comes to the quarterback position. But again, it wouldn't surprise me if they went with a quarterback. And I think if they're in a position where they know they want to trade back and acquire assets, they can threaten a team that maybe wants a quarterback and make them think that they're taking one. And I think that that's a good leverage position that they're in at number 6.
Yeah, I think that's a team, another candidate, again, to trade out. Number 7, you have the Los Angeles Chargers. Probably too early to get Phillip Rivers' replacement. This is a team that we've seen Malik Hooker mock to an awful lot.
Yeah, that would be the most likely one. But our guy Daniel Jeremiah pegged Deshaun Watson to the Chargers with the number 7 pick. It would surprise me. I think that they are a team that I think they were much better than their record indicated last year. I think they're a couple pieces away from really contending as a playoff team. They can have a dynamic offense. I look for them to go on defense.
I look for them to go on defense as well. Leonard Fournette at 12. Do we need a top running back? We're going to get there. We're going to get there, Freeway Miller. Just 1 second here. Let's keep rolling through. We got Carolina at Cincinnati. Love the bringing back Julius Peppers to finish his career there. This is a team probably not a threat to take a quarterback, but this is a team that I think is likely to take a running back if Leonard Fournette's there. Give them that power complement to Cam Newton. Maybe a team that looks at wide receiver as well there, or somebody in the defensive backfield.
Yeah, and I think even with getting Peppers, I think they could also look at pass rushers as well, because I think they're pretty strong on the line, strong in the middle there with Kuechly, but they could use some more pass rushing on the outside. But Fournette just seems to make so much sense there for the Panthers. They've had James Stewart for a couple years. He's a good running back, not a great running back. You wonder what you could get out of a power running game with Leonard Fournette and then mix that with what Cam Newton can do.
Then we got the Bengals at number 9. I think typically when you lose Zeitler, you lose Andrew Whitworth, you would think, hey, maybe they're going to look for an offensive lineman. Not a great offensive line draft. They could use a linebacker. Reuben Foster has been mocked to them quite a bit. They also could use somebody rushing the passer on the outside.
Listen, even with bringing back LaFell, I think they could use a wide receiver too. I think they could use a little help with A.J. Green.
They could.
I think that they've got a number of positions. I think that with the way free agency has gone for the Bengals this offseason, I think they're going to be a team that's going to be under the radar going into the year, probably not going to be picked to make the playoffs after having so much consistency over the last few years. They're going to be rebuilding a little bit, but they've got enough talent on that team to contend, but a lot of holes to fill as well.
All right, let's get through the last 2 teams, and we'll get to some of these questions here. You got the Buffalo Bills. They restructured the deal. Tyrod Taylor's there. He is staying there. I think they are out of the quarterback market at this time. A lot of directions they could go. They just lost Stephon Gilmore. A corner could be a natural fit for them at number 10.
Yeah, I think the big development really was Tyrod Taylor for them. I think that even though he wasn't technically an addition in free agency, the restructure, bring him back, I'd be stunned if they went quarterback now, because I think they're also a team. They were on the cusp of the playoffs last year. They probably think that they can get right back to that mark this year.
And now here we are at number 11. And now this is a pick that could be here, could go to the Patriots for Malcolm Butler, although they're saying pick 32 is going to end up going back to the Patriots for Malcolm Butler. But this is a New Orleans Saints team. Some people could think quarterback this early as the Drew Brees replacement. I think you're trying to win with Drew Brees, right? If you're making trades to bring Malcolm Butler in for first-round picks, you're saying, I want to win now, help the defense. That's where they want help. I expect them to take the best defensive player on their board.
Yeah, the Saints are, when you have a quarterback with the shrinking window that Brees has, you're making moves to win now, and I think they've exemplified that throughout the offseason. I think it was clear they didn't want Cooks on their team anymore. They tried to get as much as they could for him. They got a pretty decent haul for him. I think they're pushing towards 2017.
All right, so as we kind of went through this here, we get now to pick number 12. We went through it, and really you saw the Jets were the one team that is likely to take a quarterback right now. That you would say if you had to bet on one team, it would be the Jets. So one of the questions from Periscope was, should we trade ahead of the Jets with the Tennessee Titans team that can move back to 12, probably get the receiver they want, pick up something extra for doing so? Would you move up to 5 if you wanted one quarterback in this draft to ensure that you got him?
I mean, if this is a team that's if the Browns are in love with the quarterback, I would advocate going all the way up to number 2. If you know there's a guy you want that you can build around, you've got to make a move to ensure he's there. Granted, I think that now that Hoyer and Glennon are in their respective teams, the likelihood is less that they're going to use their picks on quarterbacks. But really, the safest way that the trade up to 5, you have a relationship with the Titans. You made a big deal with them in the draft last year. Clearly, a team that likes the deal. That's a possibility, but it's just a matter of, do they like a quarterback in this draft enough to give up that much to go up to 5?
Or do you roll the dice that they will be there at number 12? And you look at number 12, the quarterback position could be there. Trubisky and Watson are listed here. I think Trubisky much more likely for this team than Deshaun Watson. I really don't think Deshaun Watson very likely here. Kaiser and Mahomes aren't on here, but maybe those are the guys that they have fallen in love with. But really, any of these quarterbacks, I think, would be a possibility at 12 because, look, the Browns need a quarterback. And I know we had a question earlier about Cody Kessler. Played very well as a rookie. You hope that he can improve mentally and physically coming into this year. But right now, he's the starter. But you need to get some competition because he didn't prove that he could survive a game, let alone a season for you at that spot.
Yeah, you bring him in a position to compete for the job. You look at, it's all about taking shots at the plate with the quarterback position. Look at what Seattle did a few years ago. They made a big signing with Matt Flynn. probably thought he was going to be the quarterback, but
Sure.
they still drafted one in Russell Wilson, clearly beat him out for the job. Now he's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league.
All right, so you look at the quarterbacks here. We're getting a question right now. Terry McGinnis says, who would you choose between Mitchell and Deshaun? For me, it's easy. It would be Trubisky. I would take Trubisky, Kaiser, or Mahomes before Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I like Trubisky a lot. I think that it's just I think he's got a lot of upside, and I think the clear consensus, his tape is better than anyone else's from this quarterback class from last season.
From this season,
the biggest knock on him though is that he only has 1 season. So you've got to do a lot of projecting with him, seeing how defense might have adjusted to him this year if you were back in college. But I like what he did, the accuracy that Hugh Jackson likes. He had that better than anyone last year.
I think the big question is how good can he be if he maxes out on everything, because he's not great at anything. He's good at a lot of things, shows good tape there, and you can read Greg Cosell's report on him on Yahoo, which I think is a very good film study. Kaiser has the most tools in this draft, and I don't think it's close in terms of just what he brings. AFC North size, 6'4", 230. He's mobile, 18 rushing touchdowns, can make every throw in the book. I think if you're looking for the guy that could end up being a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, it's probably Kaiser, maybe Mahomes. I don't think Trubisky's that guy, but I think Trubisky's a much safer prospect right now than either of those two.
This might disagree with what Merrill Hodge says. I think Trubisky is the guy that might be the most ready. Even though he only has 1 season of experience, I think he's the most likely to come in and win a job and be able to perform right away for you. And so it's all about debating whether or not you have the patience for a guy like Kaiser, who really probably wouldn't be ready to step in on year 1.
All right, let's keep going through. We talked about the quarterbacks that are possible at number 12. A lot of options for this team. Then I think you look at the defensive line, because Garrett at 1, and this is really fueled based on the talk that maybe Jonathan Allen with the arthritic shoulders could fall, and you could all of a sudden have a line where you've got on one side Agba, the other side Garrett, you've got Danny Shelton, and then maybe Jonathan Allen in here. Solomon Thomas, it seems like, is going to be gone long before
I
this.
think he's a number 2 projection on almost every mock draft
Going
right
to
now.
the 49ers.
He has just risen so much since that Sun Bowl against Mitch Trubisky.
Absolutely. And then Derek Barnett would make sense if we didn't take Garrett at number 1 as one of the premier edge rushers, set all kinds of records in the SEC for tackles for loss and getting to the quarterback.
Yeah, the intriguing one here is Allen. I really don't think he's going to be around at number 12. I think that the way he talks about his shoulders is this is something he's going to have to deal with after his career is over, not during his career. He just performed, got better and better every year at Alabama. And really, a couple months ago, we were talking about this guy's the safest pick in the entire draft. If he slipped to 12 for some reason, it's something to think about for the Browns.
Yeah, maybe you run up there and keep those questions coming. We can interact with you. We got a few minutes left here as we roll through other spots at number 12. And I think wide receiver, you have to think that it's a possibility now, because Kenny Britt, you look at his deal, it's really a 1-year, maybe a 2-year deal, depending on how he performs this season. You've got Corey Coleman and the young guys, but you don't have another big guy on the outside. Maybe Josh Gordon. No, stop it. Let's not get silly. But Corey Davis, Mike Williams here, these are the consensus top 2 receivers in this draft. John Ross kind of inserted himself into the conversation, running that blazing 4.2 at the combine, but these 2 guys are your prototypical number 1 receivers in the NFL.
Yeah, Mike Williams had a pretty good pro day yesterday, ran a good enough 40 time for a guy his size. Davis is the one that really is interesting to me. First off, he's playing in the MAC. You have to project how he would go against elite competition week in and week out. Secondly, he hasn't been able to do much this offseason. Couldn't do anything at the combine, couldn't do anything at his pro day because of an injury. Could he slip to number 12, which is where he wasn't projected a month or 2 ago? But injuries, we've heard about it before. The physicals are the most important thing at the combine. He's someone that might be able to slip to number 12 and someone you really have to think about.
And I think for the Browns at this spot, if they're not taking a quarterback, you need to get one of 2 things. Someone who disrupts the opposing quarterback's ability to be effective, and that can be someone who rushes the passer or stops the passing game, or somebody that helps you score points. And that's what the receivers would do. As we go to the next position, I think this guy has a real shot to be the pick here at number 12 for the Browns. They got to work with him down at the Senior Bowl. People are saying he is better than Jimmy Graham. Could be coming into the league right now. They think he could be Jimmy Graham good, the best tight end prospect in years. O.J. Howard, a beast. Wasn't really utilized at Alabama. Kind of reminiscent. If he is as good as they say he is, when you look back, like Michael Jordan at North Carolina was a role player in a system. You show the ability to be great, and then it went on to be great. This guy right here, I think, could be much better than he was allowed to be in college.
Yeah, it's interesting because a couple months ago, we were talking about a number of guys who could be the number 1 tight end. It seems like he's separated himself just because he's checked all the boxes. He's healthy. I think he's a smart kid.
Great.
Played well at the Senior Bowl. He's doing all the right things. And now the worry is he even going to be there at 12? A couple days ago, Todd McShay projects him to go 4th to the Jaguars, which would be NFL history, the highest a tight end would ever go. And then I read an article yesterday about the Jets exploring him at number 6. The Jets haven't had a good tight end in forever.
They haven't had like 20 catches from the position.
Yeah, they could use a tight end like O.J. Howard, but you wonder what he would do in a system where there doesn't look like they're going to have much else on offense. So Does a rebuilding team pick a tight end at number 6? It's a tough question, but now it's a point where number 12, he might not be there.
Well, you know how important the tight end is in the Hugh Jackson offense. So this is a pick that I would love to see, but at the same time, it is such a deep tight end class. You would think that you could get a stud at number 33.
Or 52.
Or
There's
52.
a lot of guys. I mean, it's the best tight end class in years. Maybe you might span decades on how good this tight end class is. It's just the evolving nature of college football. It's caught up to the NFL.
All right, Mike. Cody Runyon says, if both Mike Williams and O.J. Howard are there at 12, who do you take? For me, that's not even a question. I'm taking O.J. Howard.
Yeah, as ideal as it would be as potentially getting the best wide receiver in each of the last 2 drafts, I think there's ways that you can address that position and get more out of some of your younger guys on the team. O.J. Howard's just a type of player you don't have on this team right now. It's a player that most NFL teams don't have on their team right now. So he's a unique prospect. I've gotten more. I was a little hesitant to go number 12 with O.J. Howard.
You're warming up.
I'm warming up, but
feel it.
I'm still not ready just because of the depth of this tight end class. But he's someone, if I'm just picking 1 and 1, I'm probably leaning Howard.
Yeah, he looks very, very impressive. Would love to see him in the orange and brown. Then we talked about disrupting the quarterback. You can do that. Rushing the quarterback or on the back end of the defense. There are 3 players. Now, I don't know if any of them make it to number 12, but if one of them does, probably a good pick for the Browns. You've got the 2 safeties, a free safety, a ball hawk, more Ed Reedish, Malik Hooker out of Ohio State, who had 6 picks last year. Then you have kind of a box safety, but who can also cover, disrupt the run game. Many people say is the safest player in the draft, goes as high as 2 in some mock draft, Jamal Adams out of LSU. And then you've got the best corner in the draft, Marshawn Lattimore out of Ohio State.
Listen, I mean, I don't even think we'd be discussing Malik Hooker at number 12 if not for the injuries he's dealt with. I think that that is the only way he's probably slipping to number 12 is because he's probably not going to be available until training camp. Not going to be able to do much in rookie camp. Teams want to get guys in their system right away. They might shy away from a guy dealing with multiple injuries. Jamal Adams would be a stretch to think he's available at 12. Lattimore, the only way he might be at 12 is if teams are worried about those hamstrings. He's had a history of hamstring injuries, and if teams value a guy like if Marlon Humphrey shoots up the board, Tease Tabor. But the cornerback position is so valuable in the NFL that all 3 of these guys are probably gone.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be there, but if they are, I think there's a good chance they end up here with the Browns, whether it be a corner or a safety. I think if you could come out of this, and that goes back to the question earlier, pick 33. I think if at pick 12 you go defensive back, I think pick 33 then becomes a great time to go tight end. I think that if you go tight end at number 12, then I think 33 becomes a great time to go safety or corner, and you can kind of mix it in there because I think you have a lot of options. And again, I've been talking about the Browns, I think, have a good shot to move back into round 1 in the lower half. If, let's say, they don't take a quarterback with those first 2 picks, move back in, take a quarterback, and then you still have a second-round pick to address either tight end or safety.
I'll toss this out there because he's not on there because of what happened this past weekend, but Sidney Jones, Washington, torn Achilles. You can come back from that. How early do you take a guy like that? If you're the Browns team with an eye on the future, not just for 2017, what pick are you using on Sidney Jones if he's available?
I'd use pick 52 if he was there. This is a guy that you're getting a first-round value on. I'm a little bit nervous, though, because we've seen this in the past, and not often do guys come back, but Achilles is much different than an ACL. I do think he has an opportunity to come back for you, but it would be an eye-to-the-future pick for sure, and it's somewhere you do have to get your quarterback. Yeah. At some point, the Browns are going to have to draft a quarterback.
Well, we'll see. I mean, that he's a player that could make sense for a team with a lot of picks like the Browns have.
He certainly does. Are running backs at 12 out of the question? I think it's such a deep draft at that position. I would say yes, it is out of the question for the Browns. You've got Crow. You've got Duke Johnson. I think there are opportunities in the 2nd round, 3rd round. I know you've got your favorite guy. I've got my favorite guy. There are a lot of running backs that I think have first-round talent in a lot of drafts that are going to be pushed down available in the 2nd and maybe into the 3rd round.
I just think at some point, as hard as it might be, some people just have to take, that Duke and Crow are good running backs. I think that some people just keep looking at this running back position because you see a guy like Ezekiel Elliott come in and make such a huge impact on the Dallas Cowboys. But there's just so many more examples of running backs that are late-round picks that give you the same kind of value as another one. And I think Isaiah Crowell has gotten better with each year. You want to see him behind this offensive line. You put a 2nd-round tender on him that shows how much you value, which is a pretty high value. I think it's a position you address at some point in the draft, but it just wouldn't jibe with everything that Hugh Jackson has said about this group and just the stability that they've had at that position, whereas there's been a lot more instability at most other positions.
And if they don't draft a running back, again, I wouldn't be surprised. I know they like the kid they got from the Dallas Cowboys last year who's going into his 2nd season, so they do have young, talented backs here. Final question of the day from Periscope is what free agency moves changed a team's draft needs the most? And I think when we went through it, I think it's pretty easy. It was the decision in Buffalo to renegotiate, restructure Tyrod Taylor Zeller, takes them out of the quarterback market, and then I think it's what the Chicago Bears did with Mike Glennon that also took them out of the quarterback market in that first round.
Yeah, I think that it was just a clear indication, and that's what it's the amount of ability that those teams are going to have to leverage if they want to trade and if the Browns are interested in trading up. The Bears are going to have a tough time selling a team on the fact that they're going to take a quarterback at that third pick. I just think you're not going to buy it. So I think when the Browns are looking to potentially move up, the teams you worry about are the teams that have that potential to take a quarterback like the Jets at 6.
Absolutely. Well, listen, everybody, happy St. Patrick's Day. Thank you for joining us on another edition of Browns Mock Draft Live. Today, by the way, on Cleveland Browns Daily, we're going to have not only Dane Brugler with his latest mock draft, we're also going to talk with Andy Benoit from Monday Morning Quarterback, who did his In the Film Room session with Mitch Trubisky. So we're going to get some insights on Mitchell before anybody else, only today on Cleveland Browns Daily from 1 to 3 on ESPN 850 WKNR. For Sir Andrew Gribble, I'm Nathan Zegura saying thanks for joining us on Browns Mock Draft Live.